If you're gonna watch this movie, watch Citizen Kane first. Trust me, because that's what I did and I have no regrets. Mank. So Mank is a new movie. It's on Netflix now, but I think it came out in a limited release in theaters a couple weeks ago, wherever theaters are open anyway. And it's more or less about the making of the classic film Citizen Kane. More specifically about its writer, Herman J. Mankiewicz, and how he wanted to get credit for writing the movie. This movie's based off a true story. It takes place back in the 1930s and early 40s, and it's directed by David Fincher, the director of Seven, Fight Club, The Social Network, just these awesome classic movies. And one cool thing worth noting here is that this movie was actually written by David Fincher's father, Jack Fincher, who passed away in 2003, so he wrote this movie a long time ago, and it just never came to fruition. So now his son, globally recognized director David Fincher, brings this vision to life. I just think that's really cool. So in this movie, the main character is writer Herman J. Mankiewicz, played by Gary Oldman, who in my opinion is one of the best actors working today. So it really goes without saying that he killed it in this movie. I don't know how accurate this movie is, historically speaking, but Gary Oldman plays Mank as an alcoholic. He was a genius writer. In fact, at a couple points during this movie when he was writing Citizen Kane, people are telling him, yeah, this is the best thing you've ever written. And he boasts about it too. At one point he was like, this is the best thing I've ever written. For those of you who don't know, Citizen Kane is famous for being at the #1 slot on the AFI's top 100 movies of all time list. It's a very iconic film, and it's pretty good too, actually. That movie has a lot going for it, so of course they'll make a movie about the making of that movie. And that's what I can say about this movie, Mank. If you're a film fan, then you'll probably like this movie. If you're not, then you might not. Amanda Seyfried plays Marion Davies in this movie. Marion Davies was a huge star back in the 30s. And Amanda Seyfried was actually really good in this movie. She's a really good actress, and she really surprised me in this movie. I always like it when she surprises me. Marion Davies was married to William Randolph Hearst, who's played in this movie by Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister, so you know he's gonna be great. William Randolph Hearst was, in his time, one of the richest men in the world. I mean, the guy had his own castle in San Simeon, and it's still there today. There's just some really interesting stories to be told there, at least for a film fan like myself. But also, I will say that Lily Collins is in this movie. She plays Mank's caretaker since he's a struggling alcoholic, so he needs a caretaker. But my god, Lily Collins is just so fucking gorgeous in my opinion. It's just one of those things that distracts me from whatever's going on screen because hey, Lily Collins is on screen. Nothing else is happening. It's just Lily Collins and that's all I see. Although I don't think I should say anymore lest her father, Phil, beat the fuck out of me because I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. But point is, Lily Collins is great in this movie too. You actually see each character's relationship with Herman Mankiewicz and you see how he pisses everyone off because of his behavior. You know, he's a drunk, but he's also a genius. You know, he's one of those drunk genius types. So he pisses people off, but they put up with him because no one could write movies like he could. It's just, there's a really interesting dynamic there. You also have Arlis Howard in this movie. He plays Louis Mayer. Mayer as in Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MGM. He plays a big part in this movie. He has this monologue in this movie that's really cool. This scene right here. He's pretty much breaking down what's important to him in the studio. It was just really interesting. That's the word I can use to describe this movie as interesting, at least to film fans. The movie Citizen Kane is about a newspaper tycoon who is a really rich guy, really successful, and therefore really full of himself, and he decides to run for office. The movie involves a lot of politics, but it's also a mystery because the movie begins with Charles Foster Kane, played by Orson Welles, who directed and starred in the movie. It begins with him dying, and his last words are Rosebud. And so the movie revolves around journalists trying to figure out what Rosebud means. All the while it shows flashbacks of Charles Kane's life, how he rose to success, his 2 failed marriages. It is a very interesting movie. So yesterday I watched Citizen Kane and Mank back to back. And honestly speaking, I enjoyed Citizen Kane more than Mank because Citizen Kane has a lot of intrigue. Mank is how they came up with that intrigue, kind of. I will say the movie Mank doesn't really feel like it's about the making of Citizen Kane as much as it's about just the life and times of Herman J. Mankiewicz, the writer. And I will say, in order to fully appreciate and absorb everything that this movie is about, it will require more than one watch. Because there's a lot of shit that goes down in this movie. It's a lot of talking, and the dialogue goes by very fast, actually. It almost feels like one of my YouTube videos. Like Herman Mankiewicz is on the phone with Orson Welles, and they're talking so fast that it sounds like one of my videos. Just no space, no pause, no room to breathe. I'm not gonna lie, I watched this movie with subtitles, and at some points I did have to rewind because I was like, wait, what were they talking about? I guess that's an upside of streaming movies at home, is that you can do that. One thing I loved about this movie is the whole aesthetic of it. This movie is entirely in black and white, and it's made to look like it was actually filmed in the 40s or 30s. It has that film grainy look to it, and every so often in the top right corner you'll see that little circle thing that happens with film when it burns a picture or something. I don't remember exactly what happens there, but you see it in the top right corner and you're like, oh my god, Wow. It made me laugh every time. It was funny. What really would have made it, though, is if the film had been in 4:3 aspect ratio like Citizen Kane. But it's not. It's in widescreen aspect ratio. I don't know. It just felt a little weird. When people are talking, the dialogue sounds like they're on a soundstage. It's just really cool. It's a really cool artistic stylistic choice that David Fincher made. And the score. The score was done by the award-winning duo of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. They also did the music for The Social Network. That's what they won the Oscar for, as they deserve to. And the score in this movie is completely awesome. It completely absorbs you into the time, because it sounds like old school jazz from that time period. In fact, when doing the score for this movie, they actually only used instruments from that time period. And it totally worked. I was totally immersed into that time period. It was great. So in the end, Mank was a really interesting look at a really interesting period in film history. Again, if you're gonna watch it, you should watch Citizen Kane first. Just to give yourself context, you know, because this movie does kind of spoil the end of Citizen Kane. And the end of Citizen Kane is one of the most intriguing things in film. The acting in Mank is top-notch. Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Charles Dance. Really, props to the cast in this movie. I love the aesthetic of it. The score is awesome. But just the subject matter. I'm not a huge film history buff, but when a movie can make that interesting, I'm all for it. Like The Artist did. The Artist is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's a silent movie that came out in 2011. Mank did something similar for me. It took a story from way back in the early days of the golden age of film and made it interesting for modern day viewers. I know Mank is available to stream right now on Netflix, but it's also in some movie theaters somewhere in the country. So if you're gonna go see it in theaters, for Mank, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. So Mank, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And have you watched Citizen Kane? What do you think about it? And what's a movie that you would like to see a movie about the making of? You know what I'm trying to say there? Like, what's a movie where you're like, oh, the making of that movie must have been so interesting. I'd like to see a movie about that. Whatever that movie is to you, whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.